let's get to initial reactions. Ricky Flex, you heard the Rotten Tomato scores. It was operating at 100% through about 50 reviews, gone down to 95%. You've seen the quotes on the posters, the masterpiece accusations that are being flown around here. Did this movie deliver as it promised?
Yeah, it was the prince that was promised. This movie lived up to the hype because, like we talked about this in the checkup like 2 years ago with Jordan Peele bidding for this movie, and there's a huge bidding war. And Jordan Peele, like like the potential like firings over this movie, the rumors of that of his longtime manager and a lot of people at Monkey Paw Productions, and you hear the hype train of, oh, this is Magnolia times Hereditary, and the director Zach Krieger saying that coming off of Barbarian, the hype train was at an all-time high, and this movie lived up to that all-time high. Like it is unbelievable movie, and it's something where you have a summer of blockbusters like we've been anticipating all year. You have Jurassic World, you have Superman, you have Fantastic Four, a lot of IP big time movies, like box office movies. Then you have this original horror movie, and you could throw out elevated horror, but whatnot. And this was just a banger, an absolute banger, and it beats out those other movies I mentioned. Like, I'd rather go see Weapons again than any of the three films I just mentioned.
I'm with you. So I think we should also say this is going to be spoiler free, and then we'll get into spoilers because we are hyping this movie up. We are going to. I don't think we do have to do much convincing to get people to go see it based on what people are seeing that are into movies online. But I gotta say, you gotta see this movie in theaters. This movie, I tried to see it at 2:17 p.m. There were showings at 2:17, and that why that number is important. That's the time you could see it in the trailer when all the kids stand up and run out of their house in like the V type of shape. And there's the mystery. Why did they all leave at that time? Why are they running like that? So I tried to get 2:17, couldn't get it. Ended up having to see it at a 10 a.m. showing. This is one of the best, I guess, alarm clocks that I could have woken up to. My theater, pretty packed for a 10 a.m. showing, Weapons on a Sunday. So great sign for the box office. This movie, I will say, it wasn't as scary as I was anticipating. We're going to talk a little bit about Together later on this episode. I found Together to be a more terrifying movie than this movie. But this movie I found super ambitious, and I think it wasn't the scariest thing in the world, but it did have thrills. It was working as a drama for sure, and I was invested emotionally at the end. I don't know about you, Ricky Flex, but by that ending, I found it pretty satisfactory and almost like more satisfactory than I could have anticipated with a horror movie that you're so used to, like these dark and tragic endings to end the way this one did. I'm surprised this cinema score is not even like higher than an A minus. Honestly, that's shocking to me. But I think this operates in so many different levels. And the constant comparison, and I want to get to this. It's been compared to Magnolia for the last couple years since this script came to be. Zach Krieger seems like he's really going for it in the second movie. I think the Magnolia script, the different chapters, different perspectives from different characters, all leading to one final solution or one final act, it was amazing. It worked so well. For all these different chapters, all these different characters. It operated as a horror for some, sometimes more dramatic, sometimes more emotional, but every single one of them I found entertaining, and it never felt too big. I think that's the biggest thing. When I watch Magnolia, you're watching like basically a 4-hour movie, and it seems like it gets away from like a focused and narrow story. This one, it felt like we were all funneling towards something at the end. It didn't feel as sprawling as that one did. What did you think about the Magnolia chapter type of storytelling here?
I thought it worked really well. And anytime you're dividing a movie up like that, like I believe there's 6 chapters, six like names. Again, spoiler free. Um, I thought I was nervous because I was like, crap, like he is really doing basically Magnolia here and like a horror type movie here. But the fact that I think it worked really well because this was a character driven story. You know, this movie, unlike Together, was less about the premise and more character driven. You know, Together was premise driven, and then the characters were after that. I think like it kind of fell in love with the togetherness shtick. This one, the shtick, like was like the second priority. The first priority was each of these chapters and the focus, the main, like the protagonist of in each chapter, and the overarching arcs within each character's arc. You know, the overlapping storylines. So I thought it worked really well because also the pace was incredible.
Mhm.
And that is a great sign of a great director, dude. The pacing on this ripped. It was insane. And that's another part where, like, if you do chapters and you're utilizing like flashback or not flashbacks, but like you go back in time to catch up to a previous chapter and whatnot, you got to be careful with the pacing and different characters and different, like, you could lag a lot. You could lag a lot in these different type of chapters movies. In this one, you felt it pick up throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And then the final act, like you were talking about, was just a wow moment, like a this is cinema, like Scorsese hands in the air. And that's why I'm also shocked at the cinema score. It's too low. An A- is too low. When you're walking out of the theater, that is like the great, like I was in a packed theater on a Thursday night, like technically a preview showing, whatever. And we were buzzing. Everyone like that was one where I was like, do I just talk to a random person right now and say, like,
No, I
wow,
was thinking of doing the same thing because
like,
I
what did
went
we
like
just witness?
I stood up and I just said, "Wow," and the person behind me said, like, "Yeah, yeah." we were
Yes.
all we were all on the same page leaving that. As opposite in opposition to Together, when I saw the end of Together, I stood up and walked out immediately. I didn't want to hear from anyone. I didn't want to talk about that movie at all. It was a little bit grotesque, the body horror, and like the ending is just not satisfactory. You know, we're gonna talk about that movie, but I feel like you couldn't end it any other way without it feeling like cheesy, you know, or just totally somber. Like that was the way to give you like almost like a jaw-dropping type of feel they were going for it. This was a pure like summer blockbuster type of feel to it, you know? It was pure like you leave the theater and you're freaking rocking, you know? And I agree. When it goes through the 6 chapters, when you get to chapter 6 and they hit that title card and then all things are starting to align, mapping out, things are intersecting and you find that middle, boom, lands that title card. Here comes like the answer to this question of how these kids, right, left, why, what's happening in this location. It all hit you really hard. And I thought it landed an excellent finale, but it did feel like it was building up, building up, building up, and then boom. Couldn't agree more. Other films that did you like have other like movies that came in your mind when you were watching this? Because you have the obvious Magnolia with the epic feel with the chapters, different perspective focused on. They did a really good job with like showing characters for a small amount of time. And then like you realize with the format, oh, I have to pay attention to this character now. I have to make sure, even if what they're doing doesn't seem important, they have a journey that's going to be like, I guess, explored later by Zach Kreger. Other movies that you thought maybe influenced this or just reminded you, right, of other projects?
I I thought of Prisoners a lot. It's also one of my favorite movies, but I thought of Prisoners, and honestly, just a lot of kidnapping movies. I just did. I know it's kind of lazy, but I just thought of Prisoners. I thought of Gone Baby Gone. Like I was just thinking of those type of movies. I know it's kind of lazy, but I thought those movies kind of interact well with this one because, like, sure, this is a horror, but like a lot of times this was a psychological thriller mystery, you know, similar to
Mhm.
like a Prisoners, you know, and this does have the horror elements. You have some gnarly moments, right? And you see some of them in the promo. Again, we're still in spoiler free, but the reason why this movie's amazing is similar to like Get Out, where like it has the premise that's unbelievable, great log line, like you mentioned, but it's character driven and it has this interesting story. And again, the way this is set up with the chapters and each of these characters kind of overlapping each other, right? It's unbelievable. And the pacing, like I mentioned, up until that final act, it does have that like summer blockbuster walk out of the theater, like holy crap, like
You
what
want to
did we just
talk.
yeah.
You want to
So
talk to
that's
people.
why I think it works really well. But similar to like a Prisoners or a Gone Baby Gone, where like it builds up to that final act, you know, that final showdown or whatever. Right. It has that like when you walk out of the theater moment, holy crap, like you want to just talk to a stranger.
Like, holy crap, they landed it, and how much did that movie kick ass? That type of
Right.
feeling to it. I thought of Prisoners as well, and I think the thing that reminded me of Prisoners most is first off the setting. It's like small town, seems like a Midwestern town. Um, Parents, angry parents, disappearing kids, you know, kind of trying to find someone's or to claim responsibility, finding someone to blame. That whole thing felt like Prisoners, but also the Josh Brolin performance. That's Hugh Jackman just dialed down a little bit. I thought we were going to get even angrier Josh Brolin. I thought he was like, that's an expert casting. If you want someone to do what Hugh Jackman did, but you can't cast Hugh Jackman, you get Josh Brolin to do it. And initially that was supposed to be Pedro Pascal. I'm so glad they did Brolin. Like Brolin, his like chapter in this, less scary, but more like the Hugh Jackman performance, but like a little bit more mild mannered and almost more logical and just a little less intense. But I love Brolin and I thought he was amazing in this movie. All these actors, I think, honestly did a great job. But there are some stories that work better than others, other chapters that work, more so. But other movies, like I thought of anything Tarantino. I think about splintered storylines. I think about rearranging storylines. I think about replaying scenes and you're just changing the camera angle or you have another camera running that you can't see. And when you switch the chapter, you're just all of a sudden the character that had that perspective, all of a sudden you're watching that character do the same exact thing and you're running it back, So I felt like Tarantino, then I felt Prisoners. I saw in the credits and I think it's become a big thing that Fincher has been a part of this in terms of the process of making weapons alongside Zach Cregger. I was looking for like more like a little bit of Zodiac type of thing or type of Fincher detective noir, not noir, but thriller type of feel. Didn't get that as much, honestly, but I think those projects really cover it. QT, Prisoners. Okay. This movie kind of underwhelmed me in terms of like scariness. I would say excellent in terms of thrills. That there's a difference there. Like thrills, you talked about it. Great pacing. You're hanging on the edge of your seat. You're building up to that sixth and final chapter. But in terms of like jump scares or something grotesque, I think this kind of underwhelmed in that regard, right? What are your thoughts?
I agree, but I also want to say like they did have like a Pennywise type of character here, dude.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of, if you look back on it, the best parts of these movies, like I said off the top, like aren't the horror aspects. And I do think, like, going into it, I thought there was going to be more, especially because the night before I saw Together. So when you compare the two, like, there's no question, like, Together is a lot more, about the body horror and
Like
the whole
turn your head, cover
yeah,
your eyes.
that's a good way to put it. But I'm happy because I'm more into the thriller. Like, the
Mhm.
psychological thriller is my favorite genre, so I'm more into this anyways. Like, this worked out for me. And I will say too, another part I was underwhelmed with, but again, underwhelmed, probably not the right word. I was just, like, taken aback. Less detective work in this, like you were saying, like the Zodiac, like I kind of expected a little bit more. And did it need more? No. I just think I kind of would have preferred that. But again, we had that Alden Ehrenreich chapter, which again, he's the cop in this. Again, spoiler free, which I think was probably like, if you look at it, might have been the weakest chapter, but it was still like awesome in its own right and a different perspective.
Right. I agree that that Alden Ehrenreich's character, his chapter was the worst. I don't even think it's close, honestly. And it's more the dramatic feel. It's more about like I feel bad for Alden Ehrenreich's character during this movie. He's just getting the absolute snot kicked out of him the entire time. And it's not scary. It's not funny. Everything else, every other chapter has elements of one or the other or both. That one was kind of devoid of all of it, but they kind of lay the groundwork that the cops, they can't figure it out. It's something that goes beyond their pay grade, or it's like we've gone to the extent we can in terms of figuring out why these kids went missing. But this does have the perspective, without going into spoilers, it has a perspective or a chapter that like Zodiac doesn't have. Like you don't get to see why the Zodiac killer does what they do. So you don't need the detective part as much because you see it firsthand. That's the difference I think between those two projects. But I agree, it's kind of like Josh Brolin just trying to figure it out. That's kind of like the only element we have. I guess Julia Garner a little bit too, like a little bit of a tag team duo there. I do want to talk about performances. I don't think we could talk about one performance in terms of non-spoilers. Okay? And I think that is it's not even arguably, that is the best performance of the movie. So stick around for spoilers and you'll hear about that. And at least in my opinion, I know you gave a
I
little
think there's
head.
another to combat it, but yes.
So Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, Alden Ehrenreich, Benedict Wong. I won't mention any other actors. And those are your primary cast, spoiler free. I love Brolin. Anything he does, I will watch. I like him way better than Pedro Pascal in this movie. Like I said, Hugh Jackman comparison in Prisoners, Brolin's the guy. When I watch this, I'm like, Brolin could have done what Affleck did in Batman. Like, where would the DCEU be if Josh Brolin was actually Batman? You know, aging. I think that would have been interesting. Tangent continuing. Someone else I really liked, and I think you're about to bring him up too. Benedict Wong. Benedict Wong is so awesome as an actor, right? And you have like the trailer, you got his eyes popping out, him doing the V running, and you see a gentle side here, and it makes it all the more surprising when you have like this explosion from the character. He should be in more stuff. Benedict Wong, he could play soft, he could play loud. He is the man, and you just root for him on screen. He could do any type of movie. I'm a big Benedict Wong guy. I think aside from the character we are hiding from, you know, and talking about, or maybe a couple, Benedict Wong probably the best of the performances here.
Yes, I definitely think the one that we can't talk about is the best, but I think there's another competitor that we haven't mentioned,
Ooh,
and it's the kid.
okay, yes, but that's why I said two, and I was kind of holding off a little bit because that's the best parts of that performance is in the spoiler section.
Right, right. I'm not going to say anything, but I think those two are in a league of their own, a
Yeah,
tier of their own, let's say. And then you have everyone else who I thought are all good. Like, I thought Julia Gardner was good cast. I think this was a good cast for her because like this is not the God, what's her Ruth, the Ruth and Ozark, like that extreme, but you still feel that, you still feel that presence with her, and she's just a great actress. And then
bitchy.
Josh
She's
Brolin,
really good at playing bitchy, dude. Like she
yeah,
comes off as bitchy in this movie too.
yeah, and again, just not as the extreme of a Ruth, but still really good. Or still really bitchy, to lack of a better word.
Standoffish, I guess, is a better term.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, um, I think I agree with you on Brolin. I think that's better than Pascal, but I could have seen Pascal do this because it's basically The Last of Us, but like so I can
Yeah,
understand
I
why
see it.
like he was originally cast as this.
Yeah.
So I could have seen it, but I do like Brolin better because I think he's more controlled. So I think that
Mm.
worked really well for someone that's trying to be a detective. I think this was better. Um, I agree with you on Benedict Wong. I want him in more stuff. I don't want to just see him in Doctor Strange. I know he's in 3 Body Problem, but God, I don't watch that. I know a lot of people do, but I don't know anybody that does. But apparently Netflix tells us a million people freaking watch the show. I don't know. Um, and then I wanted to mention one other name, Alden Ehrenreich. I mentioned it before. He had the weakest chapter here, but it was effective. It
Yeah.
was effective, and this is a Hail Caesar reunion, by the way, him and Brolin. I did like him in this, and I think it's again someone that if you bought low as like after Solo, if you bought low, I think it's not going to be a huge growth story here, but I think he's earning his stripes back, in Hollywood. He had the Netflix movie that did really well. Forget it. It's bad that I forget it, but he was really good in that. He had this. I think he's earning his stripes back, and he's going to be in more stuff, which I like.
Is it the erotic thriller?
Yes, I can't remember the name of it though.
Playing I know what you're talking about. But Ehrenreich, I agree. I don't want to hear any Alden Ehrenreich slander after this movie. I know he said he had the weakest chapter. I'm gonna stop saying that because I liked him in this movie. He had like the most it was his chapter was the most serious, I think, in terms of drama, in terms of kind of like I said, devoid of any type of humor or fun, and then it got like serious and you're addressing some like real world type of thing in terms of like police like body cam footage. I won't say that, but like police, abuse of power and things like that. So Alden Ehrenreich slander will not be tolerated. This after Oppenheimer, his stock is up, dude. We will not say it's down. We will not say that it's down. It is up right now.
It's up. It's just not like straight up. It's like
Still
slanted
ascending
ascending. Yeah, yeah.
gradually.
It's still going up. Like Fair Play is the movie I was thinking of. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of it, but
I
like
knew Play was
2023,
in there.
yeah, but 2023, like Cocaine Bear came out. He had a weird part in that. That was not smart to do that movie. But after that, when you have Fair Play, you have a good part in Oppenheimer, and you have that like final third act moment and Best Picture winner, Christopher Nolan movie. You're in Ironheart. That was also a bad cast. Like that was a stupid decision too. But again, he's not bad in that. But
He
then
did
you
that
do that.
years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It was supposed to come out pre 2023 for God's sake. So, all in all, like this is good for him. And again, I think his art, like his chapter, had some great moments. It did. Like the moment in front of the cop car. Again, no spoilers. Is that was like my whole theater went like oh, and like we all were laughing. Like it was awesome. Like it still was a great like chapter because this is a great movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. Where else do we want to go? I want to get to spoilers, but let's just get some other things off our chest before we get to spoilers. So I mentioned not as scary as I anticipated, but still has thrills. Writing very good, tight script, and very ambitious script, but it's not absent from plot. It's not devoid of plot holes. You know, it has a couple of nitpicks. They're not one is a major nitpick that I will talk about in spoilers. But in terms of like the writing of the characters, the weaving of the characters, really expertly done, and then having a climax that everything funnels to, really good. But in terms of the story itself, the explanation of the kids, um, I had some questions in that third act because it wasn't perfect. This movie's not perfect. It is amazingly entertaining, and you kind of forget all that sometimes. But some things are really obvious and glaring that we'll get to with spoilers. But I thought nitpick wise, like most horror movies, it's not perfect. Nothing's cliche, but things are worked around a little bit in this movie.
Yeah, there's definitely some like plot holes. You know, there's
There's
like
one major one that I
yeah,
need to talk to you.
and like a couple things that are just like, oh, that's just a horror movie. You know, oh, that's a fantastical element. And it's like, oh, like this movie was pretty grounded, but then it gets crazy. But again, it also is crazy, like off the log line. 217 kids just in one classroom just walk out of their homes. Like it is a horror movie. So I am willing to like bypass some of them.
Um, I thought there was also when there's constant comparisons with Magnolia, you're always looking for, okay, what's the frogs falling out of the sky? Like, what is that moment here? And I think there's a couple moments you can say are kind of reminiscent of that. There was one confusing visual that might have been, I might have just, I thought it was the most obvious thing of all time what Zach Krager was trying to say. It was during the Josh Brolin chapter. It was like a visual during a dreamlike sequence. We'll talk about it with spoilers, but for me, I'm like, this is all like what we were thinking. And if it's as obvious as I think, like you didn't have to include that imagery, you know? It was jarring to see. It kind of was like that frogs falling out of the sky, moment in Magnolia. But I thought like you didn't need to include that scene. A lot of people are complaining that this movie doesn't have much to say. In that case, who cares? Like, did you have a good time watching the movie? I think that's priority number one. But in this genre, it feels like with people like Jordan Peele, every one of his movies has something to say, has a specific message that is trying to send about society, problems with society, ways that we haven't, I guess, matured or adapted as a society. Ryan Coogler just had Sinners, had a lot to say about culture and things like that. It seems like people are looking for something larger to say. This one I thought also had stuff to say, but just didn't focus on one thing. I just thought it was entertaining. I think it did what a movie of this type is supposed to do. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I feel like that sequence, that imaginary thing felt like, oh, yeah, this is what we're all thinking. You just didn't have to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And there's another one with Julia Gardner's character in the first chapter as well. Um, I agree. I agree. I just think I do think there are themes in this.
Mhm.
But they're just kind of underneath. Because then the structure of this movie with the chapters and then literally the chapters' names are the characters' names. Again, no spoilers. So it's telling you this is going to be character driven, like I've been saying 5 times on this podcast. So the themes kind of get layered underneath it.
Yeah.
So and also the premise itself, you're so enticed with the mystery, and you're like, how, like what happened to these kids? So you kind of forget like some of these underlying themes. But I do think they're there. It's just not obvious. That slap in your face, you know.
Yeah, and that's good. Like a job of a movie, you like I get it. It's a piece of art and you have a message to send, but was it fun to watch? That is number one. If you're making a summer blockbuster, your sophomore movie, you want to say like Barbarian's a fun ass movie, dude. That's a fun ass movie. And to have this as the follow-up, I don't think he could have done much better. Do you want to do scores after spoilers?
Uh, Sure.
Okay, so let's get to spoilers. Spoiler section, you've been warned. If you want to skip ahead to our thoughts on Together, you can do that and just look at the episode, look at the timestamp. But here, spoilers for Weapons. Where do we start? I think we start with performances and we go to a couple performers that we have strayed away from because they are basically showcasing the best parts of their performance in the final chapter, you know? So let's get to it. First off, the villain of this movie. When I noticed which actor this was underneath the makeup, underneath the wig, I flipped the out. I was like, look at all these actors here. Look at Josh Brolin. All of a sudden, you have Carey Mulligan showing up. You know, you have Emmy winner Julia Garner. You have Alden Ehrenreich, Benedict Wong. It seems like, oh my God, it's our favorite movie and TV stars. Maybe not like the most like enticing leading actors, but like we all know who they are. Here comes the big bad of the movie, the actual witch of the movie, and it's no other than Amy Madigan. And I knew her name, but that's because I have pressed the info button on my Comcast channel every time Field of Dreams has come on. Field of Dreams is what I think of when I see this actress, Ricky Flicks. Do you know much about Amy Madigan aside from what she's done in terms of Weapons recently?
I think of Field of Dreams. I think of Field of Dreams, Uncle Buck.
Yes.
So yeah, like you're thinking late 80s, early 90s. Like I Gone Baby Gone. She's in 07. So I can't name a movie though that she's been in the past 10 years that I can think off the top of my head. I can't. And when I realized it was her, that was probably my biggest jump scare. I was like, what? Like that was probably the biggest jump I had in the whole movie.
And she had the best jump scare when Brolin went down in that basement too.
Yes. Oh my God.
When he's looking for his kid and she's waiting for him, I'm like, oh my God, this movie's kicking it up another gear.
Yeah, and you mentioned Carey Mulligan.
She was the wife.
Was she the wife?
I'm pretty sure.
It looked like her, but like
she was frozen. She was frozen by the Amy Madigan character.
Right. I thought that was God, what's her name? I didn't think it was Carey Mulligan.
I always confused Carey Mulligan
out on that too.
I always confused Carey Mulligan with what's her name? Michelle Williams. I confused those two. But I'm pretty sure that was Carey Mulligan, dude.
All right.
You need to Google this to make sure I'm right.
In the movie Weapons, Alex's mother is played by Callie Shutera.
That wasn't Carey Mulligan?
No.
Oh my God. I thought maybe I sound now, or I sound stupid now, but
yeah, this Callie, I knew I recognized her from something. So I just Googled. I'm trying to think. Like I'm going through IMDb right now. Let's see. What has she been in that we know her from? Because she does look familiar.
She's a doppelganger. Does she not look like Carey Mulligan?
Oh, she does.
Yeah, we can't get hung up on her. She had nothing to do in this movie aside from stab herself in the face. That was absolutely bananas too. But Amy Madigan, this performance, the fact that it came so out of left field, out of nowhere, and also doesn't line up with anything I've seen from this actor. It reminded me of Bring Her Back with Sally Hawkins, and how vibrant this character dressed. It reminded me of Hawkins. How I guess odd, and how loud this character is, especially with like this depressing, dull environment, and she sticks out like a sore thumb. I just reminded me so much of that, and also the pure evilness of the character, the way she attacks children and targets children, also similar to Sally Hawkins and Bring Her Back. I just kept coming back to that, and I think this performance, it came out of left field too, because it's kind of teased in like two of the final 3 chapters, and then absolutely steals the show alongside Alex, the child performance in this movie. But I thought she was unbelievable. Anything to add about the villain here?
This is like what horror does, like that I love, where you don't know someone's in the movie, right? And they end up being like the main part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you said, Bring Her Back happened there with Sally Hawkins' character. I didn't even know Sally Hawkins was in that movie.
Yeah.
And then she ends up being an unbelievable part of that movie. And that's the same thing here. And this one, I mentioned Pennywise earlier. Like we're in spoilers, so we've seen the movie, everyone listening. The wave in the character chapter with the drug kid, with the guy from Euphoria and
James.
Wolves. Yeah, the wave. I was like, oh my god, like this is crazy. And I was like, this is going to be like some crazy jump scares happening after that. And we got him. We got him in this third act. Unbelievable performance. This was because like she did it with the makeup, without the makeup, tense jump scares, just regular, just like trying to be a mom. Like it was crazy. It was a full blown performance in like 30 minutes.
The kid, by the way, the teenager or the kid in his early 20s, also an amazing performance. Like I think that's someone also we'll have to keep on our radars. Austin Abrams, you mentioned he's in Euphoria. He plays James. James had it all in his chapter too, you know, and he had more laughs than any other one. I think that's based on the performance, based on, you know, the homelessness, you know, of that character and the rivalry between him and Alden Ehrenreich. His chapter I thought was awesome too. The only one really chapter wise that was lackluster was Alden Ehrenreich, just because the other ones were that goddamn good and had so much to pack in terms of comedy and thrills. But Austin Abrams, great. Amy Madigan though, just out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. You know, it's just like this is such a huge movie for the summer, and Amy Madigan stole the show. And you know what is going to be coming out of this movie? There's such a huge ensemble here, and this is going to be one of the highest grossing original movies of the year, alongside Sinners. Its elevated horror genre is more recognized during award season now. If I see one person get nominated for this, it's Amy Madigan as Gladys in this movie. Is that crazy to say? Maybe. Is it, Ricky? You tell me.
So it's gonna be like the Sally Hawkins. Like they will not get nominated at the Oscars for
She
performances.
might, dude. I don't know. This is a little later on in the year. If it's like people are comparing this to Sinners, I don't know.
I don't know, man. I think this fall season there's a lot of Oscar baity type of performances coming. There's a lot coming. So like, yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath for that, but I would love it. I would love it, but yeah, but like I said, horror does this the best. And just shifting gears for a second to the kid, Carrie Christopher. Holy crap, this kid was unbelievable too. Similar to Bring Her Back. This is an unreal child performance. We are getting some all-time child performances this year. This was crazy. Like this kid was awesome in this. I wouldn't say as good as Bring Her Back, but he was great, and he's going to be in the Spider-Man Noir show.
This kid is better than the Bring Her Back performances.
You would say so?
Opinion. Yeah, definitely. I wasn't a huge fan of those performances, to be honest. You know, I think that this kid was awesome.
No,
and
the
this
kid like kid and Bring Her Back. That's like
the blind one.
Up. That's what I'm talking about.
No. Oh yeah, that was pretty good. I'm still taking Alex because like that this whole last chapter was on this kid's shoulders, you know, and it's the huge reveal. I guess like the structure of the story and the Amy Madigan kind of like I guess two-handing this final chapter helps. But man, I felt bad for this kid, Alex, man, for when he's getting bullied before, having him witness like the pain his parents are going through, having to witness his classmates get stuck inside of his basement by this evil witch, and he can't do anything about it or else his parents are gonna die. Like that kid, and you get like the silence of the kid and like kind of like this kid just like I like to have like the I guess satisfactory him to help take down Amy Madigan at the end. That's where it felt like yeah, summer blockbuster movie. You know, the fact that he didn't have a tragic ending like so many other horror movies would have, or like elevated horror movies would have, makes me love this movie so much. But I think this kid was so easy to root for too. Looks so innocent.
And like that's another part where like I guess in the log line it says one kid survived, but I thought going into the movie, I thought the entire class left at 217 and walked out of their homes. I didn't know it was gonna be a kid, so I kind of narrowed down like, all right, this kid's obviously at the center of like how this happened. But clearly this kid is already on Hollywood's radar because he was in Days of Our Lives, so whatever. But after that, he's doing this. He's gonna be in Jonah Hill's next movie with Keanu Reeves and Matt Bomer. So that's like outcome. That's like crazy. And he's also, I mentioned, in Spider-Man Noir, the TV show coming out, and in the Lanterns show. Like this, so that's this awesome. Kid's on everyone's radar.
Hell yeah. Yeah, this kid might be the chosen one. He might be the chosen one. Yeah, he was amazing. Austin Abrams, already talked about him a little bit more. His James, I thought was great when he stabbed Alden Ehrenreich in the face. Amazing scene. Yeah. So where else do we want to go? I think other things, spoiler wise, that we have to talk about. Talked about, Magnolia, frogs coming out of the sky. Here you get like a Josh Brolin, you know, chapter, and his character Archer. He has like a dream when he's sleeping in his kid's bed, and he goes out and to find his kid. He sees in this vision that he's running away with the V, very creepy. And then he follows him into his own house. But above his house, he sees this huge like gun, this huge what's an automatic rifle, and it has 217 on the gun, just like the time they left. This is the thing that I found like unnecessary. It's like we already are thinking about this town who's like grieving the loss of their kids. So many kids that have left, like literally all but one kid. It like obviously we already had the school shooter type of vibes. Like school shooting type of vibes, I should say. You didn't need to have that gun there, but it felt like you wanted some insane dreamlike visual. Kreger, I thought was kind of doing too much there.
Yeah, I agree. And the Julia Gardner dreamlike sequence there, like I thought it was a little much. I agree. And it's like in horror movies like this where you have like a witch and like demon shit going on.
Yeah.
Like I like how they explain like these kids like you could have done this movie without explaining like at the end. I was kind of expecting at the beginning of this movie without, because again, we didn't know Amy Madigan was in this movie. I was kind of expecting after that opening narration of like 2 years later, we still don't know how it happened. I was like, they're not going to give us an answer, are they? So I'm happy we got an answer. Now, am I thrilled with some of the weird like plot holes within this character? No, but like I'd rather have the answer than in other horror movies. Like shit happens and like we just say, oh, it's a horror movie. Here, like we kind of get an explanation, which I like.
Yeah, the plot hole thing. There's a couple. Here. One, when the cops go to investigate Alex's house, and the aunt's living there, Gladys is there. The two parents are out of commission, courtesy of Gladys and her witch ass shit. When the cops come and she has the kids leave, where did they go? Where did the kids go?
They went in the shed.
They were in the shed?
They were in a shed.
Which shed? Did they show them going in the shed?
It did.
Where was that shed?
I thought it was on the premises of the house, which was my plot hole.
Well,
why would you not check it all around the house?
If they went into a shed inside of like that area,
it was
like inside of their territory, whatever, their land, how do you not check that then? Like to me, it's like you have to like do a little bit more. I thought that was like, okay, now I feel like it's stretching a little bit where everything else, like you have to get them out of the house. But that's where it's like, it felt like Kreger was like, I got to think of something, have them go to the shed that's in the house, but the cops don't check it. That's pretty, it's bullshit.
I agree. And that's where like, I think one thing this movie needed was, like I said, in the spoiler free, was the detective. I think Alden Ehrenreich was a good character, but I feel like if you replace that with the actual detective, right? Instead of Josh Brolin, like Brolin's character, he focused on like wherever they were running to. Like, where were they going?
It was pretty easy to find out. Like, he literally drew an X. He's like, they're there. The Julia Gardner's like,
that's they kind of made a huge leap at the end. Like, Julia Gardner's like, oh, that's Alex's house.
How did the cops not think of this? Like,
that's running. What I mean. That's why you needed the detective here. Because, like I said, I knew in the first 30 seconds when I was like, oh, crap, there's only one kid that survived this. I'm like, well, he's obviously the key piece here in finding these kids, right? So that we needed a detective to kind of like tell us like that the entire time, because Julia Gardner's, she was like so focused, like she was kind of taking that because like she goes to the house, she's like following home from school, peeking in the window, but like it wasn't enough. It was definitely not enough. We needed the Alden Ehrenreich character to be a detective to kind of say 17 kids are missing, and there's only one logical like situation here or like key piece that we could be looking at. They wouldn't be like Benedict Wong wouldn't be dismissing like, oh, like don't think like the kid had anything to do with it. He did. Like it was obvious.
Yeah, exactly. That was my huge issue where he was like he was telling the Julia Gardner character on the phone when she was in the car, like, don't pry into the business. I'm like, that's like the other person that can kind of absolve her potentially is find out what's going on with Alex. And the fact that she's the one always approaching him, you could have easily broke that kid. The fact that he kept this secret for all this time obviously shows like how much love he has for his parents and everything. But also he's a kid, like he's elementary school kid. Like he's gonna tell you eventually. They can't hide this shit.
Yeah.
That kind of pissed me off too.
Yeah. 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 I
No
agree.
kid's keeping that secret.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'll believe that one because like you got to do something there to have a story. I'll believe that one, but I think you instead of like doing like the alternate, like if you did the detective, you could kind of bounce around between the detective, like going to the kid's house and Julia Gardner's house because one of them is going to be the key piece of why these kids are missing. You know, so
Mhm.
if you have that, that kind of helps us like with this conversation. Like we wouldn't be having this as much.
The Aaron Wright character too. Another thing I was like, "What are you doing, man?" Like these kids have been missing for a substantial amount of time, and it's all the town is talking about. It's all the news is talking about. And you have this guy who brings you to this house where these kids are kept, and you don't call anybody about this. You don't tell the police station that the kids are potentially in this house, that
He's
you might
nervous of
have
losing his
them,
job.
and he's not because of what? Because of him taking the guy in.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess they went around that, but if the kids are actually there, oh my God, and which they were, I get it. I guess that's kind of a closed hole.
Yeah,
That's
that
fair.
one I was like I thought the same thing, like, if you a like, he definitely went in there because he, like, didn't wanna, like, call for backup, and then it was just a house of the only survivor that is probably grieving right now, still only a month later. Like, you probably don't wanna be, like, bringing up any other, like, bad things related to this, like, accusations or anything, right? So that's why you go in yourself, and then you call for backup after, but, obviously, he didn't think a witch was in there that would cast him under a spell, and then, obviously, his brain gets blown off.
And and that chapter with the James, the drug addict, it was great to watch this type of storytelling where he's being hunted by Alden Ehrenreich in the previous chapter, before it cuts to James and his story. And when he's like, I told you not to come around here. And you find out why he's around there is to talk and to bring like this news to the police, potentially earn this reward to find out where these kids are. It's like that. It's almost like, no, no, don't do it. Like you're screaming at at the screen, even though you already know he's chasing him. It was that way. That's why like the script worked really well. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. And now you're like, I gotta find out what happens next. Very, very smart, in my opinion. Where else do we go, Ricky Flux? Anything else spoiler wise or plot holes that you want to talk about?
Um, I thought not like necessarily spoilers, but I thought the music was really good.
It cut out really smartly, I think intelligently in a couple
Yeah,
points. Yeah.
really, really sharp. I really liked that. Um, I liked how, like, again, this is over a course of a month, but like it felt pretty quick. You know, like
Mhm.
I thought like, oh, like they focused on a few days here. It again with the pacing and the chapters, I thought that was really, really well done too. So I'll say that as well. Um, last thing they said 2 years ago in the beginning. Okay. Like in the opening narration, I'm like, crap, are we fast forwarding 2 years? I got nervous,
Yeah.
right? So then, but then at the end, when they show like the Josh Brolin carrying his kid home, right? By the way, I also had problems with that. He would be calling the police right away, like whatever, but whatever.
Of
Um,
course, Brolin's kid was the bully, by the way.
yeah, right, right, right. But so again, Zach Kreger said he has an idea for a sequel. I was like, damn, like how do you do a sequel? Like you do like a prequel type of thing, like with the witch, or like how do you do that? Or how do these kids like try to get them right? Like how will we tackle a sequel here?
Interesting. Because you can't do Gladys unless it's like some type of way she lives on, or maybe one of the kids hasn't snapped out of it.
Black Phone's doing that.
Yeah, I feel like you let this one be. You got to let this one be. Unless one of the kids like carried something over, maybe do something with Alex, maybe something with the parents. It could be an Alex story, honestly. Because he's the one who cut his finger, snapped it, put it into the water. You could have something that carries over there. Potentially, I don't think they should make a sequel to this, though. Leave it be.
Yeah, I'm always in that camp, especially with Kreger already doing Resident Evil, which is more of an origin type of, or like a sorry, original type of movie, not really connected to the previous ones and not connected to the IP. It's more of just the idea and taking the name. He's doing that. He says he has that idea for the DC Gotham thing. He has a sci-fi original movie that he wrote. So he already has 3 major things coming up. So doing a sequel to this, something that I think right now is being highly regarded, and some would say the best movie of the year so far, then yeah, I think you leave this be.
Just like Sinners, like people wanted a sequel to that. They still might get it, but like I think everyone knows like probably the smart thing to do is leave it be. It's not like, I mean, Zach Cregger's got, he's Resident Evil. He potentially can make a DC movie coming up. I think he wants to leave this one. You know, you have other things, other fish to fry. Unless he feels super passionate about it and really thinks that this could lead in a meaningful direction, that's when you make the movie. But right now, you got other shit that people want to see. You know, be that guy who just makes interesting movies that people are lining up to go. You know, every original story, like a Jordan Peele, you know, like a Coogler now. Become one of those guys. Ricky Flex, what do you give Weapons?
This is like similar to Sinners. It's like we've been hyping this movie up so much right now, like before the movie and after. And it's like I want to give it a really high score, but I want to give myself room with upside. So similar to Sinners, I'm going to keep some room. I'm going 92, 92 for Weapons.
I want to know what I gave Sinners. I don't remember what I gave. Do you have
your score down?
Have you been logging it?
Yes, but I don't really. I try to log yours. Let me just see here. That movie came out in April, right? Yeah, April. Yeah. You gave it a 95.
I gotta give this a 95 then.
Yeah, I gave Sinners an 89.
Give me no 94. 94 for Weapons.
Yeah, I wish I gave Sinners like a 92 too. I would say they're equal, just in different ways.
I'm gonna go 94 for Weapons. And that does it for our spoiler section and our review for Zach Cregger's second film.